Hey guys, Bradley Washer here, and I wanted to quickly talk to you about how I broke into the games industry and how you might be able to do it as well. So, a little bit of a backstory. I got my start in the games industry, not the way you would think. So, let's go all the way back to my history of when I decided I wanted to work in the games industry. And that would have been in high school. And ultimately, while I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was going to graduate and I really had no idea. I had liked art. I was in a symphony at the time, which is weird and I didn't like because it wasn't very challenging in terms of new problems to solve. You're just repeating the same stuff. So I really liked making art and I didn't know what to do with it though, because I didn't really want to be a graphic designer or anything else like that. And I was playing a lot of video games at the time, specifically Halo 2. And I was actually modding the game. And I thought, my God, how cool would it be to work in games? And at around that time, I actually had a recruiter come in for the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And they said, we have a game art and design program. And it basically will allow you to make video games for a living. That was insane to me because I never realized that that was an option to have as a job. I kind of figured, I knew people did it. I figured that there wasn't a lot of people that were allowed to do it in a sense that, like, if you were going to get a job, it'd be really hard to get one. Don't get me wrong, it can be really tough, but there's a lot more jobs than sometimes it's made out to be. So I go to the Art Institute and I meet a bunch of great people, which is one reason I recommend trying to get at least around a group of people. I graduate and I have my portfolio. I'm super excited. I'm going to break in the games industry. And guess where I get a job? I get a job at Goodwill. Oh, yeah. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a secondhand store where people bring you their junk and old stuff they don't want anymore. I got no problem with Goodwill. I still love Goodwill. But it wasn't Bungie. It wasn't, Naughty Dog. It was a job. And I graduated with a portfolio that just wasn't quite up to snuff. So what did I do from there? Well, I started working on mods, which most people would now refer to as indie games. But at the time, I was working on a couple different mods. I was working on one for Orion, this like dinosaur game, and this chivalry game, and I was just making art. I was just giving them content free. There was no strings attached, and it was just to keep my skills up. Then what I did was, while I was working on that, I got a job actually working, making gazebos for the company full time. This is super weird, and outdoor furniture. So ultimately, I got to do 3D at this point. I had 3ds Max on my computer. I actually had a computer. I wasn't working at Goodwill anymore, thank God. But it wasn't games still. And the question becomes, I'm still applying at this time. I'm trying to get into the games industry. I've probably put 100 applications out, maybe 150 at this time. And no one's really giving me the time of day because I'm just a student and my portfolio wasn't that strong. But because I was working on mods so much right here, that I was posting on a website called Polycount. And while posting on polycount.com, a guy named Donat ended up seeing my art. And he worked at High Moon Studios, which ended up doing the Transformers games and some other stuff back in the day. And ultimately, I worked for them on Deadpool. And High Moon Studios, by all accounts, is a AAA studio for games. I was super excited. And you might be asking yourself, well, man, that's a lot of time, but not really. Basically, we're looking at about a year that I had to work at Goodwill to this gazebo company until I finally broke in. But really, the key factor was after graduating from school, and let's say that you can't go to school. When I graduated from high school, there wasn't YouTube in the capacity it was. It was just joke videos. It wasn't learning and education. So there was no real game art or video game or 3D art tutorials available. So this was really important for me. I don't think I'd be where I'm at if I never went to school. Nowadays, I think it's different, but I digress. What I ultimately take my success for breaking into the games industry, and if that's something you're trying to do, is that I never stopped trying to work on my craft and my portfolio. The whole time I worked at Goodwill, the secondhand store, I was working on mods. I was doing everything for free. I was just making art. And I was also making sure that people saw that I was making that art. So I was going on Polycount. I was posting. I was asking questions. I was asking for advice. I was trying to make connections. And that's an aspect that sometimes as a 3D artist, we can get a little insulary and not reach out. So ultimately, if you're just getting started or you're in a different phase of your life where you want to start making 3D art for a living, don't be afraid to just get out there, start making stuff, and start posting. Because I didn't make my entry into the game industry from a post that somebody put up and I responded with my resume and got an offer. It was because someone that already worked at the company saw my stuff and then said, we should give this guy a shot. So if I hadn't been posting and putting my stuff out there, I would have never been seen and would have probably given up if I wouldn't have got it in a certain amount of time. So hopefully this video helps you, and if you liked it, please subscribe to the channel. I can talk more about the games industry, and we'll go from there. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.